Hi, ladies. Welcome to Pathways to Fertility, a YouTube station dedicated to the women on the journey to conceive. This station is particularly dedicated to the women who are on the hardcore journey to improve their egg quality and their overall well being to conceive the baby of their dreams. I am Samantha Jacobs. I'm a licensed acupuncturist in Connecticut and New York. I have dedicated my practice since graduating in 2003 to helping women conceive babies. Today's video is an interview with one of my previous patients. This is something I would like to do more of, and if you are a woman who is on the journey or through the journey and would be willing to be interviewed, please reach out to me. One of the things I firmly believe is that we need to speak out more about the diversity in the journey to conceive, how women take different approaches, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, that people who are never going to deal with infertility might get a better sense of why infertility is such a stressful journey. In particular, I find most of my patients are uncomfortable talking about their experience. And I am making a generalization from that perspective, but I think it's too true, is that infertility is often kept a deep hidden secret. And when we keep things a secret, we keep things hidden, neither does it give it an opportunity for people on the outside of all of this to get a sense of truly what's going on, but it leaves women who are starting this journey or in the middle of this journey wondering, just what the heck is this all about? Am I all alone in this? And I'm hopeful that as I keep creating videos, that I will have more women who will speak up and be interviewed and talk about the different facets of conceiving. So Alexis was one of my patients from a couple of years ago. Alexis came to me when she was 41. She knew right away, right in the beginning, she was really upfront. She was like, no IVF, I do not want to do drugs. I don't want to do the hormones. It's not what I am looking for. And I am going to conceive naturally. She told me, she was really clear, I have about a year. I'm going to dedicate and give time to this, and I'm going to do that for about a year. So she was really clear about what she wanted to do and how this would all look. So as I started to work with Alexis, some of the things that I treated as we moved along was that she had mistimed cervical mucus. That fertile, stretchy mucus was coming in and around day 11, and she was getting a positive surge on her OPK kit at 14, 15 days. So we had this mistimed cervical mucus, combined with the fact that with the use of BBT charting, base basal temperature charting, I could see that from obviously this is an alternative approach, that her temperatures were not stable enough in the second phase of her cycle, and that progesterone was being secreted insufficiently. So a lot of the process that we worked on was to get the cervical mucus to time with the ovulation, and then to see temperature rise in the luteal phase, maintain and hold. And in particular for her case, one of the things that we really worked on was spotting before the period came. So she'd have a couple of days of spotting, and I could see through her BBT chart that her progesterone was dropping off a little too quickly. and not being able to maintain the lining. One of the things that struck me very strongly about Alexis was her complete dedication to meditation, breathing meditation, goal setting, prayer, how she brought all of those components together so that she could maintain her ability to be hopeful. In the goal setting, what was really clear to me as we were working together, she gave it a time limit. She knew there were certain supplements she wanted to take, eat a certain way, that she was willing to monitor her fertility. She was completely dedicated to the goal that she had set for herself. And when things became rough, or there were low points, I could clearly see how she was totally dedicated to nurturing hope. That through prayer, the meditation, and the goal setting, she could continually relatch into her ability to stay hopeful, to celebrate all her small goal setting that had been achieved. And she knew she had the capacity to hang in for the year. And she also recognized that if it didn't happen, she knew she had dedicated everything she could to this journey and that she would never be disappointed in herself. And I think that's something that's not talked a lot about when women go on the fertility journey. So when you watch the video, you'll see towards the end, she talks quite a bit about it. And there were a couple of phrases that she used that I thought were absolutely beautiful, that her capacity to stay hopeful was something that she continually nurtured, which is just amazing. I hope you enjoy the video. Hi, everyone. I want you to introduce you to Alexis. Alexis used to be one of my patients, and she has been kind enough to come today and speak with us about her journey so that hopefully you can find some information, some connection, that you are not alone on this journey. So, Alexis, take me back, way back in time, when you decided you wanted to have a baby. What was your age? What was going on? What were you doing?
So when we first started working together, I think I was 41 or 42, right there, like right on the cusp. And I knew that I wanted to have a baby. I was aware of my age and any obstacle that might present. And I knew that I wanted to do things naturally, and that's how I live my life. And that's, what I was going to do. And I knew in my heart that I believed my body was capable, but I knew that I needed some support. And so I had heard things sort of through the grapevine, through different mommy groups, different things, that acupuncture for fertility was something that I should, look for somebody who knew what they were doing. And I'll admit, actually, I had initially went somewhere, and I went because I had heard that they were okay and that the price was very reasonable. And so I went there, and the woman was very kind and nice, but I found it was like she wasn't really hearing me. And I was, talking, and we weren't quite connecting in the way that I thought, that I believed that I wanted and that I needed at this time. So I stayed with her for a little bit, but there was no change. I wasn't, nothing was happening.
Did she give you a lot of information about your fertility? Did she help you figure out if the acupuncture was making a difference?
None. All she did the same points every time I came. There was really no education involved. There was no, she was very kind, but there was no real it was just a friend of mine was nearing the end of her pregnancy and went to her to like help her go into labor. And she said she was very successful and she seemed that she was good. And so I went there. I didn't have great success. So I knew, I was like, in my heart, I was like, I know that there are people that really know what they're doing. So that then I started all this like Google searching and just like really looking at what I thought would resonate, what resonated with me. And I found Samantha. And I reached out to her and we connected on the phone. And I don't even think I came right away. I feel like I didn't come right away. But whatever. Then eventually I ended up going. And, I feel like right away, Samantha obviously had knowledge that I hadn't experienced before. So she really had a handle on, what it meant for a woman, to start this journey, and what was the expectation of me and what was the expectation of her, because we were doing this together. And
Well,
initially
would you not agree that I think when you're trying to improve something that doesn't have really strong markers of success, you need to be a team and you need to have good communication between each other, because
100%.
otherwise it's just sort of something ambiguous floating around. And what is this really doing? And how do I know it's actually working?
Yes.
So I think that when you're looking to improve fertility, there needs to be that communication and partnership for it to really gain the momentum and be able to keep, I mean, from my perspective, to keep hope that you are actually doing something that's providing.
That is 100% correct. And I feel like in the beginning, even I was like, I had like this window, where I was like, okay, this is what I want and this is what I need from you. And I loved conversation with Samantha. I love her educating me, but there were certain things that I kind of was like putting walls up. Like, well, I don't need, I know you're saying, and you're the expert, and she is, but well, I really would like you to start, taking your temperature and maybe considering some of these herbs. But because I was so set on my, ways, I knew that I wanted the acupuncture, but I wasn't so sure about the other stuff. And like, I don't really need to take my temperature. I don't need to do that. And I don't really need those supplements because I'm taking supplements. And
Curious, what do you think your resistance was around?
I think because I thought that even though the doctor that I was working with, he was a functional medicine chiropractor, he did not and does not specialize in fertility. But I felt like he was the best. I'd worked with him for years. I'd actually helped manage his office, and he's a brilliant guy. And I just sort of had my, blind faith that like, well, he knows. And like, if he's telling me to take these supplements and Samantha's telling me to take these, well, I'm going to just stay with what he's telling me and just have her do the acupuncture. And it took me a little while. It took me a while. And Samantha was very patient. But she would, just still
I would
encourage
squeak the wheel.
yeah, but was very respectful that this is what I wanted to do. And I did stay consistent with the acupuncture. And ultimately I actually did get pregnant. And was still going to Samantha, but unfortunately miscarried shortly thereafter. And so I took a break, but I think only for like 3 weeks or so, got myself back into action. And I think it was after that I said to myself, self, you're here, I was committed and making this investment into Samantha, but I wasn't really diving into all that she had to offer because of my resistance that I knew better or that this other doctor knew better. And I sort of said, like, enough is enough. And if I'm going to do this, I need to go in and do it 100%. And so the next time I think I met with Samantha after my little hiatus, I think I said, I'm ready to do it your way and to listen to you. You're the expert. I've been, just not really open to that, but I'm now realizing like there's a reason you have all the knowledge that you do and that you studied with the people that you studied, and you've been successful with many women before, and it's time for me to really start to pay attention. And so she, again, still incredibly patient, but I think she was happy at this point that I was ready. I got myself a little notebook. I started taking my temperature. And it was slow, it was like the process, she followed my body and where my body was and what it was asking for. And then, then it was like, a few weeks later, I said, all right, let's do the herbs. If, and she said, are you sure you're ready? And I said, I'm ready. And then, and it was like, we're really a team now, because I was listening and I was receptive and I was doing what she was asking, my homework. And I know she'd come to my home and I'd come downstairs and I would have my little notebook and I was like so excited, like, look. And it was really neat. And so I can say that ultimately, and obviously I'm abbreviating it, but after, I don't even know, I wish I knew exactly how many months, but it wasn't that long after we started taking the herbs that then I had a positive pregnancy test, and I wound up with my daughter, who is now, she'll be 4 in April. So it was, yeah, it's neat.
So, just so everybody can hear this, how long from beginning to end being pregnant with your daughter were you with me? So women can have an understanding of what natural conception, because it was a good time span.
I want to say it was
quick.
It was a year, probably.
Yeah.
It was probably a year from like start, well, and then finish was probably maybe over the year.
Right.
But
right. From the time you entered my practice to the time you got pregnant with the daughter you gave birth to, that was about a year.
I would say that was a year. And then you came during the pregnancy. So then, a few extra, obviously,
So
whatever.
I'm going to ask you some questions because I think probably if anybody's watching this video, they would have maybe these questions. So what was in your mind that ruled out IVF? Is it just your value system?
It was a value system. It was that, and again, anything I say is this was my journey. So this isn't about anybody else. This is my journey and how I felt. I'd worked in sort of holistic natural medicine for most of my adult life. Starting in my early 20s, I was working for a chiropractor. Then I graduated to going to somebody else's practice and I managed his practice. And so I learned so much about all things, natural health and really living. It wasn't just something I did once in a while. It was who I am. It was how I, identify myself. Anyway.
I think, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Just that,
I just wanted to bring up that topic, that question, because I think a lot of people jump that they have to do IVF, and there are different avenues in natural conception. And it's a very personal decision for a variety of reasons, but that this is a possibility.
100%.
I think for anybody who's watching this video, I just want to say Alexis was so determined. I can remember when we first met that you were like, I can do this. You had a determination. And I think one of the things I admired so much when we went through this whole process is that you kept yourself on track. And I can remember there were bouncy points along the way where you were like, I can't take my temperature one more day. But you were like, I'm on track. I'm going to stay on track.
And it was
how did you stay on track? How do you keep yourself motivated?
I think for me, and I know everybody's different, but like I did get pregnant with my first daughter. I did have a miscarriage before her, but pretty seamlessly after that, I had her. And I was already 37 when I had her. So I knew that my body can do this. I believed it could. I knew it could. And then even me personally, I didn't see, does miscarriage, it hurts. And everybody deals with it differently. But like for me, I was like, okay, it's just my body saying like, you did it. It just wasn't right at that moment, but you can do it. And so I just knew that my body could. I believed it. in my, I mean, in every cell. I believed it. I
Mhm.
do a lot of,
Yeah,
I
I
was
was
doing
just gonna say
meditation.
yep, Alexis does a lot of work in goal setting and understanding what the end result that she wants. And
Mindset,
it
all of that.
helps to help you stay on course. And you were very clear about, like, these were the supplements I was going to take, these were the herbs, these are the steps. And you'll share with everyone, but I can remember, you started to be stressed and you were like, okay, I have to take these supplements, I have to do the herbs, I have to take my temp, I am going to start to meditate, I am going to do, I think it was yoga or maybe breathing, but you were like, okay, I have to figure out how I need to cope so that I can stay with my goals.
That was it. It was all just like, the end result was only that I was going to have a baby. So for me, that was like, that was it. And I realized, like, everybody's journey is different, but that was mine. And I believed it. I believed that into being.
Mm-hmm.
I was on board. Obviously, my partner was on board, because while I'm going through all of this, I mean, yeah, we weren't spending money, on IVF, but I mean, this was an investment. It was an investment of my time. It was an investment of, obviously, financial,
Mm-hmm.
but just like for him too, it was something that, like, he knew this was priority. Maybe we're not going out to dinner as much right now because this is a priority. We made it something together. He understood that it was like, and I would remind him sometimes, like, listen, like, if we were doing IVF, the discussion wouldn't be, there wouldn't be this discussion. We'd be, taking a loan out. I mean, like, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And, and we would, maybe we would have, if that was something that it came to, but that just, what I just, in my mind, I was like, and the other piece of it is that, me personally, I didn't want to be putting hormones that weren't already in my body at that time. I didn't want to, it was one thing to take, like, progesterone a little, once I got pregnant, let's say, to try to hold the conception, but I didn't want to be, like, for me, injecting different hormones. And, like, I'd seen, people that I knew go through that. I saw, and I knew that there are sometimes downsides to synthetic hormones, and that you're pumping in your body. And for me, it didn't sit right. And I thought to myself, and I gave myself, like, a parameter, like, I'm not just going to keep trying till I'm 50. I did have it in my
Yeah, that's
mind, like,
right. You did have a time limit. I remember
I
us
was like,
talking about that.
I'm going to give it, I think I said, maybe, like, from wherever we were, maybe after that miscarriage, I was like, all right, like, we're going to give this another year. And if we get pregnant, amazing. And if we don't, I'm not just going to continue this indefinitely. Like, I just can't
You
emotionally,
you had
you
an
know?
endpoint. Um,
Yeah.
and I want to share here that a lot of my patients feel the the financial pressure, constraint, because there is a certain amount of dedication to whatever part of the pathway or process that you want to take on. And I love how your goal setting set really clear boundaries with where you wanted to put the investment into. And I just share with other women that I think that's part of balancing the stress management, is that, if you want to make something happen, you'll create the investment and you'll let other things go, but that you also have an endpoint. Um,
Right.
and and I mean, from my perspective as a practitioner, I also think it's, especially in holistic medicine, that there needs to be measurements and values, and to show that you are investing into improving something, rather than it's sort of ambiguous and you just keep doing this until something
Right.
happens.
And I will say, I mean, speaking of just measurements quickly, like, there was, because at first I wasn't ready to, like, I knew Samantha knew what she was doing, but I wasn't 100% ready to, like, listen really what she had to say about temperature. I didn't want to be bothered. But when I started to commit to that and she started to teach me, and there may be many women who already know this, but I didn't. You know, what your body does and what a rise in temperature, a drop in temperature, what it means, where you're at. Then it kind of became cool because it was like, I was like, oh, neat. Like, I'm understanding like it's revving up. And then we realized, I think at that time, my body didn't have enough heat when it was supposed to, or what, I forget exactly, but it was like, and then you taught me like these herbs, this is going to help with that heat. And
Right.
I can remember it so clearly, just like when it like clicked for me and I was like, okay, like,
Yeah. And then
and
when you actually get to see the change in the
yeah,
chart,
you
it
did.
starts to make you realize that, yeah, this is changing things up. And I
This
may feel the same, but like I can actually start to see how my fertility is improving and coming into balance.
totally, like, I remember that really clearly when it was like, and then there was that feeling like, okay, like, even if it doesn't happen this cycle, like, we're getting somewhere. Like, we are actually getting somewhere. And
So,
that so
oh no,
helped
go
because,
ahead.
like, you know,
Yeah.
once you see it, and I saw all her charting wasn't just like, it was like, okay, like, I'm now using her skills to my advantage. And now we're like really working together and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what were the things that you implemented to handle stress? So I remember your meditation. Wasn't there yoga? Am I right on that?
Wasn't doing yoga, but I was doing like, I did lots of meditation. I did lot journaling. I was writing down.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I would write down about my baby, about the, that, what like I would write everything, like what it would look like with my older meeting the younger, what that feeling was going to feel like. I would like really feel into these things. And I was still working at that chiropractor's office and I would go to work. I mean, sometimes 2 hours before that we were even opening the office, and I would use his office because it was quiet. My daughter wasn't there. And I would use his office at like 5:45 in the morning to like all the lights would be off. I would put my meditation on. I knew nobody was coming in, and I would do like my 45-minute meditation. And then I would journal and do some, in my book. And then I would get my day started. And that was like, I was so grounded and rooted into doing that. I'm telling you, there's almost nothing that I wrote in those books that I didn't, that didn't ultimately in some fashion come true.
That's pretty
And
cool. How did you create support for yourself? Friends,
so I had,
husband.
my partner was completely, he was very much on board. He understood that I only wanted to focus on doing things naturally. He was, he got it, he understood all of it. And so for that, I'm grateful. And then I had some really good friends that like understood the journey, that, understood the struggle, because the truth is, I'll admit, I mean, I was, I had my blinders on. All I saw was trying to get pregnant. And that's why, for me, doing the meditation, getting out of my head for a little bit, I did Joe Dispenza meditations, doing his stuff, doing, the journaling. I don't know, I did Abraham Hicks stuff, like doing that stuff, law of attraction, like for me, like that's where I was able to like stay grounded, keep my focus and not go crazy,
Right.
because just like anybody else, I had those moments where I'm just like, this is crazy. Like my whole world is revolving around trying to have this baby. And that's why I also had to set the limit. And that's why I said, like, I'm going to
Right.
give us as a couple, as a family. I mean, we did have my other daughter, one more year of this. And then that's it. We're going to be tapped out. And then I leave it up to, if it happens, it happens.
Right.
But at that
Right.
point can't just keep, you know,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Do you remember? I have vague memories and just wanted to see if we can share with anyone who's listening. I remember in your group of friends, I think somebody got pregnant. And didn't they hold back that information from you and you found out later? I think
Yeah.
it's like, I want to bring that topic open because so many, it's such a, all the conflicting feelings. You want to be happy for your friend, and yet, you know, there's a mixed bag. There's a little bit of jealousy and
Uh-huh.
sadness, and you know,
Yep.
you're figuring out how to put a smile on your face when you don't want to smile. Can you share a little bit around that?
So I was in a mom's group. And at that time, you know, it was really great. There were like 9 of us that were super close. We would take trips together. We would do stuff together, and we raised our children together. I will say I was the eldest of the bunch. And um, I was also the only one. I think there was only 2 of us that only had one child. And that isn't why I wanted a second. I wanted a second for myself and Julio, you know. But it, and I was I always loved hearing when, you know, one of them would get pregnant. But I will say, when I was in the thick of it and I had a miscarriage, the miscarriage, the one that I was referring to, was right in the smack of COVID.
That's
And it
right.
was
Oh, that's right. COVID.
really hard. And it was right around that time that we were going on a mom's trip to Mohegan Sun. And I had found out, I mean, like the day before we were leaving, that there was no heartbeat. And it also happened to be that a good friend of mine in that group just found out that she was pregnant with her second. And I didn't know yet, but I was obviously not in the best of spaces, but went on the trip anyway. And I knew I needed to have the procedure done, to remove baby.
DNC. Yeah.
And the DNC, yeah, sorry. And what, like the day we came home. So that in and of itself was obviously hard. And then we get there and someone's talking, and they said something, and it was like, oh, did Andrea tell you, or did she say anything? And I was like, what? And then they were like, oh, and it was anyway. And so it ended up coming out that Andrea was pregnant. And I remember I had this huge mix of emotions, because I was that part, like I was very happy for her. But there was also this, like, did people think I couldn't handle it? Like, you know what I mean? I've been through way worse. Doesn't anybody know what I've been through? Like, of course I can handle. But then there was also this, like, I'm kind of upset. Like, I'm upset. So it was this whole, like, you know, you're on a whirlwind of just like, I was all over the place. I was like excited, sad, and mad all at the same time. You know? And it is hard. It is hard. But I also knew, and because of the things
your friends rally around you.
yes,
I mean, they loved
really
you.
good. And because I did believe so strongly, and everybody's different, but in sort of the power of the law of attraction, the power of prayer, the power of, you know, positive. And so I also believed that, like, me being around other women that were conceiving and were fertile and were having babies and positive outcomes was like a sort of like a God wink to, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So
That's
it was all
beautiful.
in,
I love
it was,
that.
it's all in how you see it, right? I could have sat and been like, it's not me, you know, and been super angry. And while I did feel some of that, of course, I'm human, but I really tried to focus on, wow, like it's all around me. Like I can choose how I'm going to feel this energy. I can be angry and like repel, or I can say, wow, like Andrea got pregnant. I can do this. Like this is going to happen. And that is where, you know, I focused, and I believe that helped me tremendously, because you can't, if I'd sat in that being angry and upset, that's not, you know, that's not going to do
Well, I don't
anything.
think that's who you are, though. You know,
No, it's not. It's
but it,
absolutely.
I will say, I think that it's easy. I've seen women who do get caught in being the angry and sad
For sure.
because for a variety, they have, you know, for a variety of reasons, but it's easy to get stuck there. And
Sure.
then, of course, the what you just shared. It's the ability to get out of it, to be able to stay on the journey. I think that when you start getting mired down in it's there's something wrong with me, everybody else is pregnant, there's something wrong with me, it makes it harder to stay on the journey. It makes it harder to stay true to your goals, to achieve this end result. And instead, you get frustrated and you go, screw it, I don't want to take my supplements today. Screw it, I don't want to meditate. Oh, I don't need acupuncture this week, I'm going to cancel. Like, it starts to pull you off track. And
And
if you can
yeah, I
find
was
your own way of coping, it helps to stay on that, on the path, on the target of where you want to head in.
totally, and I think setting, like what we said, even though it feels sad saying this, but I think setting a goal of like, listen, I'm going to do this for another year, because it was like, if I'm going to do this for another year, that means no bullshit. That means, taking my supplements, even though I'm bummed and sad today.
Mhm.
Taking, doing my meditation and doing my journaling, even though I'm feeling like really, upset or whatever, because I've given myself, I have a year. If after the year and I want to, whatever, then it's done, but for me, that was important. And, something else it taught me is also that, like, you know, listen, there's never the perfect time to have a baby ever, right? Like, you can wait for the perfect time, and there's just never the perfect time. And I think being an older mom, now I'm 46 and I have a, 3, almost 4-year old and a 9, almost 10-year old. And I'm definitely one of the oldest moms in the bunch. And I really don't care. I keep myself super healthy and I take care of all those things. But looking back, if there was anything like I would tell my own daughter is like, don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait. And so I think part of what I'm getting at also is that, like, a lot of these women that, not, that my friends and people that I knew that were getting pregnant, sort of what felt so easy to me, a lot of them were like 15 years younger, 20 years younger than me. And I think we do need to be honest about that, like, yes, you can get pregnant older. I know, because I did it. But I also believe that the reality of it is we are more fertile, in our, 20, late 20s, 30s. And those are just facts, and I think something Samantha and I have talked about is just, things like, the possibility of possibly freezing eggs. And if I had that, something that someone had educated me about that earlier, maybe I would have done that. Maybe this would have been a lot less stressful. I don't know. I mean, my journey is my journey and I'm grateful for it. And I love that I can possibly help other women that are in the
Right,
same, but
right.
just be
Well,
open with, like, with my daughters. I have 2
mhm.
daughters, just being able to, like, share this story, but also teach them just about biology and the body and what is.
Well, is there anything else you would want to share?
Just that, like, I mean, you know, if you're going to commit, and you want to do the acupuncture, with Samantha, obviously I recommend her very highly, but also just that, like, it's a journey, right? It's not, oh, I'm going to do this for one cycle. I mean, if that happens for you, amazing, but that it's a journey, that it's not, it's the, what do they say? It's the marathon, it's not the sprint, that, like, you have to sort of, and isn't that just how sort of Chinese medicine is? It's not, it's understanding that your body has seasons and cycles, and just, like, understanding that you need to go with that and accept that you're doing this together. It's not like, oh, she's just giving you acupuncture. No, like, you're working together to understand your body's rhythm. And I think, like, if you're going to do it, that you're making the commitment. And if you need to set, a number of cycles as sort of your goal, that then do that, but then stick with it. Because, if you don't get what you want after the third session, that doesn't mean that there's failure. It just means your body needs a little more time,
Yeah,
and Samantha might need a little more time to sort of
yeah.
figure this out. It's a
Yes.
dance, and just be willing to do it and not, don't get discouraged because it doesn't happen after the first or second or even the third cycle. That it takes
Yes.
time for what Samantha's really doing.
Yeah.
It really does.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that is, I think, coming to an end here. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for watching my interview with Alexis. I hope that it provides something for you. And if you are a woman on the journey, hardcore journey of infertility, and you would like to be interviewed, that you want to put your voice out into the world, please reach out to me. I would love to interview you. And once again, I think it's time as women that we stand up and talk about what is infertility and how hard it is. Once we stop keeping it hidden and we bring it more out into the sunshine, the more support, insurance coverage, getting support within the business world, we will be able to access those things. So thank you for listening. Bye.